declaring this meeting on the 8th of March open. Okay, we're in progress. So we have some visitors today. At 10 o'clock, we've got 10:30, Lydia Stoddard from Christchurch NZ. Hopefully Lydia's coming on board to talk through her report. And at 11:15, we've got Francie Edge and maybe a couple more of them from the Fairley Memorial Wall Working Group are going to join us. So is there any declarations of interest today? No. So bereavements. I have one bereavement, and that is Glenys White. Glenys was an Albury resident. She died on the 28th, and she was love wife of Jim White. And they've been in Albury for quite a number of years. So that's the only bereavement I've got from the Mackenzie. I'm not sure about what's been happening in Twizel or Tekapo, but I've been keeping a good lookout and I haven't noticed of anyone that I knew that had died. So maybe any of the councillors know of anyone? No. Okay. So we'll just remember Glenys for a minute. Thanks. Okay, thank you. Mayor's report. Will someone move, please, that we receive the Mayor's report? Matt, thank you. And Emily, thanks. So the report is as read. Happy to take any questions. I suppose that's a good way to start. It's been quite busy. This last month. There's been a number of things going on. Everything seems to have been via Zoom, or a lot of it, which I'm sort of over Zoom, but not much I can do about it. So one of the things that came out of the one of the meetings, the mayoral forum, was that high staff workloads are being felt. There's a general lack of resourcing, all these multiple reforms going on. We're in a pandemic, and we've also got a large capital delivery this year. The whole thing is sort of starting to escalate, and I think staff, we're going to be have to be mindful of our staff who are going to actually kind of feel the high workload. So I'm happy to take questions on my report.
Any idea over the different funding model from Waka to Kotahi?
No, that hasn't progressed any further. The Waka to Kotahi sort of struggling to maintain the funding that they've got. We've called for another funding model to be looked at because we feel that our roads, even the national highways, are deteriorating and there isn't enough money being spent. I would like just to mention the mayoral reform economic group that I sit on, and really quite upbeat. Venture Timaru's working on quite a number of quite big projects, including a large pack house for like Timaru. There's also working with the food processors. There's a huge job going on to try and turn the Fonterra boilers into biomass and the sourcing of that. I've got a real problem in Timaru too, skilled labour shortage, real issue. In North Canterbury, they're working with Leithfield. They're working on wind power. They're trying to develop an eco hub. they're going to use trans waste pipe from Cape Valley, which is the been a waste dump site. In Kaikoura, they're trying to develop some hot pools and an aqua park. And Christchurch is looking into putting in this big clean energy, hydrogen, aerospace, and solar power at the Christchurch airport. Ashburton is really creative, has a lot of interest at the moment. They're kind of, it's been mainly around the transport logistics, with Ashburton now is going to be a centre of a rural distribution area, and there's a proposed hydrogen farm, if you like, or fuel distribution park to be based at Rakaia. A lot of public sector money going into this. So we've had quite a bit of a talk about it with MB, and Warren Gilbertson's going to set up a meeting, because obviously not everyone can, every district needs to set up a hydrogen park as such. And so we need to have a bit of a discussion of where these types of activities best benefit the region. So that's going ahead. And I see you've got your hand up.
Kia ora, Mayor Graham. It's just a comment more than anything. In your summary of activities, these are huge issues that we're facing. RMA, climate change, COVID, future local government.
Sorry, Keela. Sorry, it was just Keela, I think. Oh no, I don't think you're on mute. So
I'm muted. I'm muted.
Yeah.
No, I was muted, so it must be someone else.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, sorry. So what I was just going to comment on was the fact that it doesn't help a lot, but there is some comfort in knowing that the issues that our council feel as though it's coping with in regards to the staff workload and difficulties with rates and high inflation, that it appears that all councils are under pressure in this space.
Yes, that's quite correct. Maybe Angela would like to comment on that too. Thanks,
Yep.
Angela.
Yep, just to advise that, I've been meeting with the CEs of the other councils, and I think we're all grappling with the RMO, all of the reforms that are going on. The reforms are all happening piecemeal, they're not integrated. I've been on numerous conferences, not conferences, Zooms, right across the country, and I think everyone's battling with the extent of the reforms and the fact that they're all piecemeal, they're not integrated. The volume of submissions we're having to make, we've got one virtually every 2 weeks. There's a lot of requests for information coming through on the three waters, and some of these reforms there's not a lot of detail provided. Staffing wise, it continues to be a huge workload when you've got all the normal statutory and BAU and projects on top of that. So I think, even some of the other CEOs are indicating that, attracting good candidates is problematic, with a lot of candidates being worried about the extent of reform in the sector.
Thanks, Angela. Stuart.
Yeah, just the thing from that working group there, it just shows you the value of having a industrial area set aside that can be developed for future use, which we don't have at the moment. You've got likes of Selwyn, you've got Ashburton, and you've got different areas with business parks or commercial parks set aside. So it's probably something we should be looking at if we want to go ahead along those lines.
Yes, the one thing that sort of came out of it was that we need to be definitely shovel ready, and a lot of these, a lot of districts are probably further ahead than what we are, but at the same time, we have a lot of the advantages of water and space that these areas don't have. So it'll be an interesting conversation. Angela.
Graham, through the chair, I'd just like to add, we're coming to the pointy end of Te Manahuna Kiuta. We're making some really good progress, and we're now starting to commence work on some of the top priority projects, and that will be something we go out for engagement on. So hopefully, out of that, there'll come a whole lot of projects that we can then look at what are the opportunities that arise as a result of that. So just thought I'd mention that and add it to some of the other, commentary that Graham's mentioned as well around the other councils.
There is quite a lot of money out there. Well, they're saying there is, I'm not sure, but MB is saying it does have to meet regional, a regional test, that there is going to be benefit to the whole region, probably not just Mackenzie. For big tranches of money. But then again, you've got as far as Ashburton's concerned, there's quite a lot of private investors are wanting to move in there now too. So that's a different scenario. They aren't calling upon regional growth funding. So I've actually, I'm very sorry, but I've started this meeting without a karakia. And Anne was going to do one, so I'm sorry. So we'll just pause now in my report and we'll start with our karakia. Sorry, Anne.
It's fine. Find me, Graham. He te kaihanga mana kitia tēnei hui arahine matu I roto I o matu mahi amenei. Creator, support us at this meeting. Guide us in the work we are doing. Amen.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, back to my report. Yeah, happy to take any more questions. I will just comment on how great it was to work with New Zealand Rowing, Mark Weatherall, who kept both Angela and myself and the community very well informed. They wouldn't have gone ahead had there'd been a lot of kickback from within our community. They were anxious to work with us, and I think I feel quite pleased that they went ahead. It was well run, and I don't think it's caused any issues. So it's good that those events were still able to be held. So I did have an update meeting with a mini meal forum with the Nigel at Timaru, Craig at Waimate and Gary at Waitaki. We talked about a number of things, but probably the most important thing was COVID measures and working together as a district across the district. Like there was a bit of difference in the way we brought into the measures around COVID control as far as staff and that were concerned, and council pools and that sort of thing. There was a bit of a push that maybe we need to work a wee bit more together, and also the CEOs be asked to work more together in the fact that we maybe can bring more like shared services working together as councils. So those were the main things that came out of that meeting. But we've got very good relationships with our neighbours, and I think that's very important. And if there's a crisis now through this pandemic, we can rest assured that we can pull support from our neighbouring councils. No other questions? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. So the next report is Angela's. So can we receive this report, please? Yes, Anne and Stuart, thanks. Angela.
largely I'll take the report as read. I'll just point out a few key highlights. So essentially, as I said, we're making good progress on Te Mana Huna. We've got the vision and principles adopted by all the agencies. We've got three scenarios, which we've received feedback from all the agencies, and we've consolidated those scenarios. And we also have a set of decision criteria, which all of the agencies have agreed to. We're looking to get approval from the Runanga. That's still outstanding for all of those areas. We're starting to commence work on the, as I say, the market economic analysis of those scenarios, and putting into practice, telling us what that all means. And we're working towards selecting a preferred scenario towards early April. At the same time, we'll be starting to kick off the priority project. So that's a really exciting piece of work. And so, we're going really, really well on the project and tracking really, really well. I'd like to thank Sam in that regard. Sam has been absolutely incredible in terms of the background support and doing all the project coordination. And Jimmy Sagro from Rationale has been great at helping us to get some traction and move things forward. In terms of some of the legislative reforms, we continue to monitor the legislative reforms and be across all of the elements of that. To make council aware, we have got the Future for Local Government panel coming to meet with us on the 23rd of March. I have scheduled a workshop the day before with council, and I've highlighted the 5 priority questions in my report that we will be asked to provide feedback on. I thought we would have a roundtable discussion to discuss what council's view of those questions are, and I will circulate the document again ahead of that workshop so that councillors can read through the document as well. In terms of COVID, it continues to be a busy space. I guess today, as of yesterday, we had 17 cases in the Mackenzie. And we're working to make sure that with CDHB, Graham and I were on a conference yesterday on a call yesterday with Ruth Kibble from CDHB. We're looking to see how we collectively work together and how we distribute the rats and through testing sites. So that remains to be that's remaining as a work in progress. We're touching base fairly regularly on that. In terms of our HR side of things, I'd also like to just mention that Joe Rush started with us. Really, really pleased to have Joe on board as the emergency management officer, and he's already up to speed in terms of the COVID and what our role is in terms of supporting the CDHB as the lead agency. Very, very pleased. He's also progressed some other work on in terms of processes and policies, and really glad to have him on board. In terms of the HR space, work's been really busy. We've been successful. We're in the final stages of recruiting a comms advisor. We've finally recruited a corporate planner, and we're in the final stages of actually putting an offer and doing reference checks for that person. So we're starting to make some traction on that. We still have outstanding the financial accountant, which we will have to go back to market for. And it continues to be a busy area. The next cab off the rank will be the IT support analyst, and then the manager for recreation and facilities management. That'll be these 2 positions there. One is the manager and one is the officer supporting that. This continues to be an area, so we're actively working to build internal capability and to make sure that we employ local. We employ local people in our organisation to start driving things forward. Just in terms of policies, Alexis has been busy, she's sent out a few policies as documented in the report, and we're busy working on a leave policy and what it means should any of our staff get COVID. We're busy looking at all the other policies in the region just to make sure that we're in alignment with what those other policies are. In terms of customer services, we've provided the graphs there showing what's actually happening in terms of the volume of customer service requests. I guess a worrying trend there is that we're seeing an increasing number of customer services requests staying open for longer. And so we've been busy investigating that. I did send councillors an email last night just documenting some of the reasons for that. The reasons for that being that it takes a while to close things out. Some of these things remain a work in progress for a period of time, but we are actively working through that and making sure that where we can close things out, we are closing things out. And so, yep, I guess I will continue to monitor that, and we'll continue to make sure that we keep on top of all the requests. And I think at that point, I'll leave it as that and take any questions.
Stuart.
Yes, Angela, just on the customer request one, with the email sent out, would it be helpful if we had some more columns there so we knew where they were? I put a customer request in a week ago for a local ratepayer, and I happened to be talking to one of the officers concerned the other day on Zoom. It has been actioned, but nobody has been notified. And I'm just wondering, it seems to be just sort of a communication thing. And the email address was there to reply to. And I'm just wondering if, okay, it's a wee bit more work, but it keeps people in the picture.
I certainly will have a look at it with Barbara and see what we can provide, Stuart. Just in terms of closing things out, it continues to be a continual work on progress to make sure that we do, we do follow a customer-centric approach whereby we communicate with our residents or, ratepayers when they log a service request. We keep them informed and we actually tell them what's happening on those service requests. I've had a few where the communication has been not that great, and we're going back to those ratepayers and closing those out properly. So it does remain a bit of a work in progress. We do need better software, as Chris will tell you, to better support that. And as we move towards our magic upgrade later, in April, we'll start to see some of the ability to put some of those systems in place come on board. So it does remain a bit of a work in progress, and we will look as to what detail we can provide to provide better information. I'm certainly looking internally to get some more management information brought to the exec table so that once a month we review our customer service requests and we actually make sure that we are tracking in the right direction.
Thank you, Angela. Anne?
Hi, Angela. Under recruitment, I see there's a 12-month fixed term executive assistant appointment. I guess that's Tamana Huna Kiuta. Sam?
Part of it is that, but part of it is also that there is quite a lot of admin and just supporting not only myself but also the wider exec as well. And I think it's putting appropriate processes in place to make sure that we manage things proactively rather than reactively. So just to give you an example of some of the improvements that I'm looking at is really taking a radar screen of the next 12 months and making sure that we schedule all of our workshops proactively, that we actually know what's coming to council, when it's coming to council, when milestones are due. And that takes a little bit of admin to make sure that actually, that we get the right information to you guys at the right time. the other thing is we don't have backup for Arlene. So Arlene in the last year really battled to take any leave. So with bringing someone on board does offer the opportunity to provide some backup as the minute secretary, should that be required. So I guess it is a mixture of help that's needed to make sure that we put the right infrastructure in place to support the leadership team and to support the council as well. And also just to also let you know, we've also got elections coming up, and there will be a bit of work around you know, making sure that we do the training for the elections, and also that we do a strategic retreats as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Angela. So just briefly, Lex, is there, are we still getting plenty of applicant inquiries for these jobs?
That one's a bit hard to quantify actually, Mayor, because it will depend entirely on the role. As an example, when we have with the executive assistant role to the CEO and the executive leadership team, we had probably around 8 or 9 applicants, but unfortunately only one of them was living in New Zealand. We're getting a lot of overseas applicants who are either not eligible or able to work in New Zealand. That goes back to your comments earlier around the, you know, the skilled shortages that we're finding, and we are struggling as a country within that whole administration, executive assistant, and actually an IT support as well, who can do that on the ground rather than remotely.
But I do think that the approach that we're taking, Graham, which is to really cherry pick the roles that we're looking at, rather than a scattergun approach, is proving to be highly successful. From where we were last year to where we are now, we are successfully recruiting candidates. We're recruiting good candidates, and you know, it's just a case of maintaining the momentum and driving that forward. But we mainly, as Alexa said, it is always we had a good candidate for a financial accountant. We lost them. There's a lot of demand for skilled resources, and they took up a position elsewhere. So it is a continual case of just keeping the momentum going and trying to move forwards.
Yes, that's dead right. And if we can cherry pick a few here and there, that's all good. Thank you. So my question was, Angela, around we've got some quite serious consultation to do around Te Manahuna. And it's a wee bit problematic now with COVID the way that it is. How do you envisage us rolling that consultation out?
We're busy developing a plan. Chris and Jimmy are busy developing a plan. We're looking at, you know, what the comms plan is going to look like. Obviously, COVID is a risk and will remain a risk, but we have found that with the online sessions that we did have with Te Manahuna last year, they worked really, really well. And so we will continue to use our networks and our agencies' networks to communicate some of that out. If we can, we will do drop-in sessions. You know, we're planning certainly to do some drop-in sessions in April. So we're looking at a bit of a mixed approach, Graham, to move forward. I don't know if Chris wants to add anything because he's been in some of the detail.
Thanks. I think you've covered it pretty well, Angela. We've got a fairly exhaustive comms plan. It also provides for online sessions as well as in-person sessions. So I think we've got a good mix of activity, and obviously we can be flexible when we see where we are. But I guess we're quietly optimistic that we may have some relaxation of restrictions by the time we get there.
Thanks, Chris. I'm sure we've got to do the best within the circumstances, and no question about that, but it will concern us a bit if we can't really make quite a big job of this consultation, which is a critical part of the Te Manahuna at this stage.
Yep, and certainly, Graham, we want to go out and we want to be talking to people, and we want to be using our networks as much as we can to get that engagement going, especially around the rural sector. We've had feedback that we need to engage more fully with the rural sector, and we'll make sure that we include that as part of the plan when we go out to do that engagement.
Yes. Any other questions on Angela's report? Just make one other comment, is that we always seem to get most of the requests at present anyway in the community facilities area. It always used to be in the roading area, but it seems to have changed and has been in the community facilities area for quite some time. I presume this is nothing to be unexpected, given the fact that that area touches a lot of people.
Yep. I'll ask David to comment on that because he's been across the detail of that. But I guess, you know, we've had the Transient Event Centre. We continue to have numerous projects that come up in Fairley and in Transient and in Tekapo. And we continue to work with the community on the various aspects. But David, you might want to comment more fully on some of the detail of that.
Yeah, I suppose, Graham, I can't comment on what your past requests have been like around roading, but certainly there appears to be a demand. I think if you even just look at the shared use paths and cycles, the amount of people in Twizel that are now wanting to get out and I suppose add the extras to their life, and that's why we get the demand, whether it be across the lakefront in Tekapo, whether it be facilities, as Angela, you know, they want an extension of swimming pool hours, so we're doing the heating. So we are responding, I think, to as many as we can, but I think they will keep coming as people want just to enhance their lifestyle, I suppose.
Thanks, David. Yes, it's my assumption too. Any other questions to Angela? If not, thank you, Angela, for a very good report. You've certainly been a busy lady. So 6.2, which is the district plan review and approach and indicative work program. I'd like to welcome Louise and Claire to our meeting today. Will someone move we receive the report, please? Thanks, Emily and James. So, Aaron, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. I'll take the report as read, if that's okay, and just provide a brief summary insofar as that the paper as proposed seeks to amend two sets of resolutions that Council passed through the Planning and Regulations Committee in October 2012 and October 2017 that addressed the approach to the district plan review. Since those resolutions have passed, 10/5 years have progressed, and that means that we need to once again relook at how we approach the district plan review insofar as that under the Resource Management Act, we must review our plan every 10 years. Since we've commenced the review in 2012, an additional 10 years has passed, so we now need to look at the whole plan rather than just the parts that were originally proposed. So the changes to the resolution seek to address that whilst recognising that Council has already commenced the district plan review and released plan changes 18 and 19, of which 19 has completed its process and plan change 18 is currently under appeal within the Environment Court. At the same time, we present for Council's records a proposed work program that will carry the district plan review through the full process over the next 3 years. It's an indicative work program that is able to be adjusted when required to reflect circumstances such as changing legislation and the needs of the community. And we've also included some information around a proposed terms of reference for a steering group to support the district plan review team, and also some details on engagement. So that's a very high level summary of the paper. the details in the paper and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Aaron. Any questions? It's noted that back in 2012, again in 2017, we made quite an attempt to tackle the district plan, but it all fell by the wayside as other things got busy. Or we attempted to do parts of it and didn't quite get it completed across the line. We did ever do plan change 19. We've since done plan change 18. Plan change 13 now is up again for 10 years is up. So it's now relooked at. And I suppose that's the one that concerns me the most as we dig back into that one. Aaron.
Yes, the intent is definitely not Mayor Graham to dig back into plan change 13, but to look at where there may be areas of improvement for our community and stakeholders. So plan change 13 went through a robust process. So many of the findings that were received through the Environment Court process are robust and will not warrant any in-depth examination. However, changes to the National Policy Statement for Fresh Water has an impact on fencing and the like, and also the wild and conifer management program in the Mackenzie Basin doesn't align with some of the provisions that are currently in the plan change, the decisions and the plan as a result of plan change 13. So there's an opportunity for council to get a better set of planning provisions for the community and the environment moving forward.
So this would be things around other permittable activities for fencing and burning and oversowing and areas where have been cleared from wildings.
Yeah, that without getting into the detail of the actual work program, Mayor Graham, those are the things that spring to mind. So that the National Policy Statement for Fresh Water requires some stock exclusion fencing on a number of waterways depending on the stock and the location, but the planning provisions currently require a resource consent for all fencing within the Mackenzie Basin. So there's an opportunity to look at whether there's a more appropriate way of managing the effects of fencing in relation to waterways, which are now required by another piece of legislation. And in relation to the wild and conifer control, the removal of the trees is fine under our current district plan, but to the reinstatement of some sort of land use following it often triggers a resource consent, which can add additional cost and time to a process which is seeking to remove a pest species. So that may also warrant further consideration. And that's something that when we get to that stage of the plan, which sits in stage 3 on the indicative work program, the planners and experts will go through and present back to council around gaps and opportunities to be considered.
Thanks, Aaron. Stuart?
Yes, Aaron, under number 2, enabling the spatial plans, the way back, I think it was about 17 that the Abley report was done for the towns in the district. Is that going to be included in that spatial planning? Because there was a lot of consultation on that done on that.
So not through you, Mr. Chair, that not specifically. Transport sits in a different section later on in the proposal and will also align with some of the subdivision works. Yeah, energy, infrastructure and transport sit at stage 6, but that's not to say transport doesn't have effects throughout. So when looking at enabling the spatial plans, we will need to look at the number of car parking spaces and the like. Also look at council's approach in response to new legislation along those lines as well.
Yeah, so you'd use the report that's already been done, the information from that?
The report will be put onto the table and will be looked at in relation to what is needed for the district plan review and then utilised as best seen fit. The direction from council has always been not to reinvent the wheel or redo pieces of work that's already been done. However, that report will be nearing 5 years old and will maybe need to be amended in places to reflect changes in legislation and also some of the outcomes of the spatial planning, so that to make sure it's still fit for purpose, but it does provide a starting place for council.
Okay, and the other one is on priorities. If we had an issue starting to happen, could we change the priorities on the district plan a wee bit?
Yes, Mayor Graham, the work program's designed to be agile in nature. So we've created the work program based on priorities as they stand at this stage. If there was to be an issue that arose that hadn't already been addressed or needs to be readdressed, we could amend the work program to reflect that and come up with some solutions. The work program is agile in nature and by design so that we can respond if necessary, albeit it is quite a truncated work program anyway, and that we're looking to do the bulk of the work in 2 to 3 years. So I'm hoping that any issue that arises is already well on the way to being addressed or can be pivoted very quickly.
Thanks, Aaron. Any other questions?
Yeah, Graham, you may have seen we have updated the program based on the workshop. For example, the lighting provisions have gone, help me here, Aaron, I think from section 7 up to section 2. I'm not quite sure whether there's been other changes, but we have tried to reflect the comments and priorities that council set at the workshop that we had a fortnight ago or, yeah.
Thank you, David. The other major change to the work program was we've recognised recreation and open space within stage 2 as well, and the need to look at that in conjunction with the spatial plan implementation as far as we can. So that may result in urban open spaces being looked at within the urban areas and some of the other adjoining open spaces at a later stage, but we'll work through that detail as we get into the rubber hitting the road and getting some of this moving.
Any other questions? Oh, Anne.
I'm just going to comment on the fact of the agility of this work plan. The fact that we workshopped this and highlighted the lighting ordinances is something that we could tackle straight off the rank. Is very encouraging to me, and I think it shows how agile that the plan can be. So from that point of view, I think Aaron and his team have done a great job, and I am very encouraged with what I've seen.
Thanks, Anne. One other question, Aaron. Is it anticipated that there'll be a number of hearings as we move through this plan?
Yes, Mayor Graham. So each work program has the ability and will likely get heard on its own unless we group a number of them together into a hearing. So to keep things moving, we intend to take it each stage through, as you'll see on page 51 of the agenda at the end of my report. There's a work stream that shows that notifying and the formal process and commencing for each stage at the end of the earlier work program, so that once we notify and go into that formal process, is the end of that as a hearing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? So Louise and Claire, it's quite deliverable.
Yes, good morning, Mayor Graham and team. Look, we've worked pretty hard on listening to council in terms of the resources you've got available and the priorities that you identified through your ILM process and the workshops we've had. And the plan we put together is really based on that, but also acknowledging that a good process and good systems will mean we can tackle this efficiently and use as much work that has already been done and feed that in to the process. So yeah, we're confident it's deliverable. You know, the stepped program is always going to have its challenges, but any district plan review does, as you can ask any council. So I think we're confident that this is really achievable for Mackenzie and for the project team that we've got and the resources that are available.
Thanks, Louise. So does anyone want to move? We've got some staff recommendations, 5 of them on page 24 at the beginning of the report. James?
There's actually 7 recommendations, but I'm prepared to move them all.
Oh, sorry, I looked over the page. Correct. So we have a mover. We're seconder. Emily, thank you. So you're happy that they are as they're printed, or do you want me to read them all out?
I'm happy as they are.
Happy as they are. So it's been moved, James, seconded Emily, that we received these 7 resolutions, amendments to the resolution. Well, it was amendment to the original resolution on the district plan on 2012. So I'm going to put the motion, sorry, yeah, Murray?
Just one comment. James might not be able to move one of those.
Okay. Was that?
Because he's listed in it.
Oh, on the steering group.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing we haven't actually talked about, the steering group as such. Anne?
Yeah, that was my concern too, Mayor Graham, that we discussed that, the steering group appointments. I think that's important that all council have a conversation about that. And also too, I wondered if point 7, the final sentence is released by council and part. Is it and part or as part of the district plan review project?
So what I think I'll do, we'll just break it up before we go. So we'll just take the 4 resolutions of the staff recommendations, which is the first part of getting the plan underway, and James can move that and Emily can second it. So that's the 4 resolutions. So is that okay with you, Arlene?
Yes, Mayor Graham, I'm keeping up with you. Thank you.
Okay. So it's been moved, James, seconded Emily, that those first 4 recommendations are received. All in favour? Raise your hand. Okay, well, just against. Anyone against? No one against. Anne? Or did you have your hand still up? No. So they're all in favour, so that there's passed. Now we'll go to the resolutions around the steering group. So is there any discussion around this? I think it's quite important that Aaron does have a steering group to keep up with everything and to report back to planning and regulation. Any comments? Yes, Murray.
My only comment was how soon does that steering group kick off? It will be within this term?
I would think so. There's quite a lot of work to be done, but I'll let Aaron answer that.
Yes, Mayor Graham and Councillor Cox, the steering group would kick off effectively immediately. Once the work program's adopted, we'll need to get everything moving.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just longevity.
Angela?
Graham, through you, I'd just like to ask, do we need to nominate the staff that go on that steering group? I certainly would like to be involved in the steering group. And I know Aaron will, we just need to make sure we've actually articulated, besides the councillors, who else is involved in the steering group.
So I read it somewhere that and I presume this is open to those steering group appointees accepting the role. So we need to nominate them, but I did see the mayor does sit on everything, and I presume the CEO, and I'm not sure what page I saw that, but I'm pretty certain I saw this. Aaron.
It's page 30.
So through you, Mayor Graham, on page 58 of the agenda, within the proposed terms of reference as an attachment, it lists memberships. So that council's previous a previous meeting when council agreed to the establishment of the steering group, council appointed Councillor Munro, Councillor Leslie and yourself as mayor to the membership. And within the membership as proposed, there's the chief executive, there's myself, and there's the general managers, operations, planning and regulatory. So
Yes.
David, and additionally, it's proposed to offer membership, and this was agreed at the previous member to local Runanga representative as well. And additionally, there has been conversations around once the membership, the steering group establishes whether an independent member with expertise in planning would be a benefit. So that's highlighted as a member, independent member to be confirmed / to be announced.
Yes, so that's good. Angela, did you want to further comment?
No, that's fine. I just thought we probably should clarify that point.
Yeah. So these appointments, we're not provided the appointees are happy to sit on it. There's no need to have a formal process of electing them as such. They're just appointing.
So through you, Mayor Graham, council went through what I described as a formal process at the previous council meeting and appointed Councillor Munro and Councillor Leslie. This is just a flow-on report in which we seek to put a terms of reference around the group so that there's transparency and understanding of what the outcomes of the group are.
Great.
One
Okay.
of the things I wondered about, Aaron and your worship, would be, do we want to delegate to the mayor and the chief executive the ability to appoint the independent member and the local Runanga? I'm just worried that we do want to hit this project quick and fast rather than coming back to us next meeting. Just as a suggestion, you do notice that a quorum's 3, so that we can be quite nimble, but are you happy to maybe delegate it to you too, or would you like those two to come back to the next council meeting?
Stuart?
Graham, I would suggest also the chair of that meeting would be part of that appointing process, which is Anne, Councillor Munro.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree.
So I think probably the CE and Anne, the chair, have responsibility for this. You're happy with that? The other thing I was thinking is in different fields, we may need different independent member. I'm not talking about iwi as such, but it would be handy sometimes to have on that committee someone specialised in a certain field. I don't know whether Louise or Claire might want to comment on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think the steering group has the opportunity to seek input from technical experts when required, or through the request that the staff seek technical input to support any documentation. So I'm not sure if we need a technical membership per se on the membership. If an independent member is appointed, they are likely to be in the planning space, so we'll have the ability to cut through all that type of information and provide recommendation based on the technical reports that are fed back up through the steering group to the planning committee and then to council.
Okay, that's fair enough. Any other comments? Right, so will someone move that we receive this? Make these appointments, Stuart. And Murray, are you happy with that? Thank you. All in favour? Raise your hand. All in favour? All's aye. Against? It's carried. So thank you for that. So well done, planning team, Aaron and your team, and really look forward to actually achieving something this time. And hopefully it won't go back in 10 years' time for another amendment from 12 to 17 to whenever, but we'll have it achieved by 2024, 25 is your deadline.
have we passed 6 or 7? And I think Anne
Yes.
is right that we should change that word. Do you agree there? I think it should be an as rather than an and.
Yep, it is an as rather than an and.
Correct, yes.
Okay. So we've
And do we need to put the words, the recommendation in that we delegate the, an 8th one, which is that we delegate to the chair of the steering group and the CEO the ability to appoint the independent and local Runanga members.
I think it's the chair of the planning committee, isn't it?
Yep, that's what I mean.
Yep.
Okay, so I've already, we've already received 6 and 7. We now have an 8, do we?
Yep.
Okay, so that's that. We can appoint the chair and the CEO. Hello.
Hello.
Are you sharing something, Arlene?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Arlene.
Sorry, Mayor Graham. Yes, I was just sharing my screen while I type out that resolution, just so that I get the wording right.
Okay.
I've got
Thanks, Arlene.
that council delegates to the chair of the planning committee and the chief executive the ability to appoint Runanga representatives.
And the independent.
And the independent
Independent.
member.
Yes.
Okay. So we need a mover and seconder for that.
Okay. So have we a move? I'm happy to move that. Seconder.
I have a question, Mayor Graham.
Oh, sorry. Anne?
That appointment of Runanga representative, is that an invitation and it's up to them to appoint who they want onto the committee?
Correct.
So I'm not quite sure if the wording's right there.
Okay.
To
point.
Representation.
Representation, yeah.
From the Runanga, does that correct
Yes.
it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And an independent member. You happy with that, Anne?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so I've moved it. Seconder. Can't see everyone's hands. Oh, yes, Murray, thank you. All in favour? Against, raise your hand. I can't see everyone, but I haven't heard anyone screaming, so it's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Aaron, Louise and Claire. It's into work now this afternoon.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Graham.
Okay, so we now go to page, how are we going for time?
We're a little bit ahead of time, Graham, so I was wondering whether you wanted to go on to the finance reports.
Well, we're not really ahead of time. We've got 10:30 and it's.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was 11.
Yes, and I do have Lydia waiting in the waiting room for the next item. I will admit her if you like, or.
Yes, so yes, that would be good, thanks.
There you go.
Good morning, Lydia. Oh, you're on mute, Lydia.
I am indeed. Sorry about that. You'd think by now I'd be used to it.
No, good morning and welcome to our council meeting. And we're just going to receive now your quarterly update. So I'll ask someone to actually move that we receive it, and a seconder. Matt, thank you. So we've received your report, and yeah, it's makes some good reading, but some not so good reading. So I'm going to hand over to you, and you can take us through it and highlight the points that you want. So thank you for coming on board, Lydia.
Perfect. Thanks, Graham, and lovely to see everyone. I guess the period that we're reporting on is October to December, which unfortunately for tourism was not a particularly pretty period for us, with just coming out of the nationwide lockdown, and we still had regional lockdowns in Auckland and Waikato. And then of course we moved into the new traffic light system, and the confidence around travel in general was quite low. So we haven't really seen great domestic performance over those months. That being said, it was still higher. It was still growth on 2019 domestic. But again, it's an interesting one to compare back to 2019 because we had such high international numbers taking up those that accommodation and that capacity. I guess from a operator perspective, obviously the wage subsidies and the resurgent support payments were in place until that changed to the COVID, the framework, the protection framework. So that was, I guess in many ways that was a better time for them than what they've got now, because they had those support payments, or certainly before they introduced the Omicron relief payments. 3 that we know of exited the industry over the period. So as a direct result of the pandemic, Gems, Alpacas and Fairley, and then we had the 2 YHA properties in Takapua and Aoraki. So, and obviously with that one went our Dog Friday as well. So they were really incredibly sad to lose those. And I spoke to all 3. More positive note has been some of the eateries. We've obviously had some changes there, so that's great, and great to see the new TLV restaurant in Takapua Lakefront open, and that will increase some eating capacity over the coming surging periods, which will be great. So I guess in terms of the marketing activity, we did a lot over that time, but we also recognised that there are a lot of variables at play that we couldn't influence through marketing. I mean, low consumer confidence to travel being one of them, and of course those 2 regions in level 3 lockdowns for the majority of that period. So we did see a decline in visitor spend and visitor numbers. In terms of the forward outlook, and I guess, I mean, that's probably the part that everyone's probably a bit more interested in. I guess there's a revived sense of optimism now. It feels like the game has really changed for us in the last 2 weeks. For the first time in 2 years, we're seeing the light. Even though they haven't announced it, there is obviously word within central government that an announcement will be soon, that will be opening up without isolation periods, which of course means that the leisure traveller can start coming back. We're hopeful to see that July latest, but ideally in June, to really capitalise on that ski season and give Australians in particular some confidence. So at Christchurch NZ now, we are completely in planning and implementation mode to get ourselves sorted to maximise the Australia opportunity. But as well, from a Mackenzie standalone perspective, we're keeping a really strong domestic program in place as well. So we'll be heading into market sort of later this month, early April, to target the Auckland and Tauranga markets around some of those bucket list ski stuff. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of appetite to do a ski experience in those markets that's perhaps different to Queenstown. So that's ours for the taking, I believe. And we just have to make them aware of some of those incredible Mackenzie only type of experiences. So similar creative to what we used last year, but updating it slightly. In terms of Australia, we've purchased, or we've invested into the Central South Island campaign activity, which will not only be domestic focused, but they'll also be taking that into Australia as well, both consumer and trade activities. So we should have a really strong presence, and I certainly make it known at the table that we are have a phenomenal winter offering that is actually unmatchable by many regions. So it's pretty exciting. I guess there are obviously some concerns. We're seeing Australia opened up recently, and they've had a slower than anticipated uptake. That being said, they didn't have much notice. So it's interesting watching them and watching what those operators are sort of telling, but it's very early days yet. And certainly, obviously, the macro factors such as inflation, credit hardships, they're not favourable. That being said, I guess they're not within our control. So we need to focus on what we can control. And we certainly know there's appetite in key markets like Australia for the ski offering, and hopefully the States as we start to broaden up beyond. So we'll be heading off to KiwiLink, which is a big Northern America chance to connect with outbounders. We'll be doing that through our Christchurch NZ partnership. So someone within Christchurch will be doing that on behalf, and we're actually bringing that person down to the region next week to really get them into the region, understanding the product, understanding the stories, and falling in love with our many amazing operators. So look forward to introducing them to you in person, Graham and Angela. Yeah, obviously, as we build back, there are some key challenges. Labour for our industry remains a massive challenge, and hopefully we will see some help from Immigration NZ coming online with that. And public transport connectivity is obviously another one. We have heard from Intercity just officially yesterday that they are reconnecting that service, Christchurch to Queenstown. They won the government contract. That contract will go through until June, and then they'll obviously bid for tender for it to continue, or if the world has changed and they can make it a sustainable route, they'll be off on their own again. But it was great to have them win that and continue that service. And we'll be working with another provider as well on that space, just to make sure that we can really capitalise on the Australian market, who don't tend to want to drive from Christchurch and Queenstown. A lot of them are uncomfortable with that. So we need to help inform our trade partners of those solutions. I'm also working with I'm hopeful that we might be able to send one of the ski fields over to Australia as well, to be part of the ski activity, and working with the likes of NZ Ski and our regional representatives to be the face of the small ski fields. So just that one's probably a work in progress at the moment, but I think what I'm trying to signal is we're being quite strategic about our growth back, particularly for that lucrative Australian and US markets. We see them as obviously quite key markets going forward. Yeah, I guess in terms of the consumer and trade marketing, last activity for the last sort of three months I'm reporting on, we obviously wrapped up our 52 Reasons campaign. We did that campaign, actually performed exceedingly well. Just to give you a good example of what well is, I kind of measure on cost per through play, and that exceeded what's called industry excellence, and certainly was better than the Christchurch NZ campaigns performed. So I got quite a good cheer from me personally on that one. We've had some other smaller campaigns in markets. So we did a joint venture campaign to promote the direct services from Wellington to Timaru. We did a Christmas gifting campaign leading up to Christmas, and then we're in market currently with a digital off-winter around the Best is in Your Backyard campaign, really celebrating the many bests that the Mackenzie has: highest peak, largest glacier, world's purest night skies, trails, lakes, scenery, and heaps of other activities. That creative as well can be repurposed for future domestic campaigns as well. So it's nice to have these new videos and assets created. I guess we're doing those quite low key because actually at the moment it's really hard to stimulate travel, and we have to balance up our very limited budget with when is the best time to be in market to actually result in an increased visitor spend. So that's the real challenge for us. We could be out there now, but that would mean that we couldn't be as impactful in a few months. And actually, can we with the Omicron surges at how it is and consumer confidence around travel so low, we're holding back a little bit. If it changes, we will pump up and dial up, and that's the great thing about being really quite a digital focused campaign. So it's funny, I've had conversations with quite a few RTOs because I guess we're in uncharted territory right now, and they're on the same, certainly on the same wavelength around we all want the 10 visitors that are willing to travel at the moment. There's been lots of smaller activity, and we've got a partnership with Neat Places, which is kind of shining the light on our food and retail offering. It was an opportunity to do something different, obviously as a region where we're predominantly known as a nature based on our nature, our outdoor experiences. So this was an opportunity for us to work with a really dedicated foodie channel and create some foodie content and tell our eatery and our retail stories. We've got in the period last year, we had the Lack of Luxury TV series filming, so we hope to see that air in the next few months. So they filmed at Mount Cook Lakeside Retreat. We pitched for that and also co-funded with the property owners. So that will be quite good exposure, I think, in the next few months around that particular property. The exciting thing for that is that show, there's syndication opportunities, so selling the show into Australia and other key markets as well. So it's not just a domestic focus. We've got Trail Towns, which is an Australian show, TV show focused on showcasing the townships around the different trails. They're filming in the region this month. So we've been doing a lot of prep work around the narrative, around the destination narrative. We've teamed up with Tourism Waitaki on that one to showcase the Alps to Ocean Trail, and look forward to having them doing lots of great things up on the glacier and whatnot. So that's quite exciting. And then we're just maximising every single opportunity that we can, both in the trade marketing space, so educating trade around our product. There's a lot of the tourism trade market has been decimated, so there's a lot of educational stuff that we're doing to bring them back up to speed around what we have, who we are, how you get to us. And as we start to be able to travel, we'll be looking at those opportunities to bring them in here, but also head off over there and get in front of them. So it's a really important time for us to reset. And then we're also a lot of stuff that you don't see, which is just pitching stories to media. So often when you see any of the stories with, travel sponsored stories, we often write the pitches to sell in Mackenzie product into the wider stories. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that Jason and I are up to in that space. A fair bit in the industry engagement space, and we're looking forward to having another stakeholder event next week with the Tourism Industry Association down there. I think that'll be a really awesome event next week. I think for the first time we're going to have some relieved operators. And I think certainly I'm bringing a really good team from Christchurch down. I don't usually tend to do that, but I want to show them that we have everyone here ready to go out and sell the Mackenzie. So I think it's a really good signal to them. They'll also speak to their respective plans. So we're bringing Mel, who leads our trade team. She's coming down to familiar the product, get up to speed, meet the operators so she can go offshore. We've got Briar from the Christchurch airport. She's also coming down. She does the same, just slightly different activity, but it's really important. There are two key influencers that can take our stories offshore. So, and then Kath and I will of course be down as well. So really looking forward to that. Had a couple of some capability building activities, and Regional Events Fund. We had our first contestable funding round in October last year, of which Graham sat on the panel for. We had some really good applications, of which 2 were successful. Unfortunately, those 2 decided to due to circumstances naturally cancel for this year, so we'll reinvest in them next year, and it is working hard with them to help work through if they would like to come back for an increased funding and what that would look like. So we've definitely guaranteed them the same support and the money tagged for next year. I guess probably the most exciting piece of news in the event space is that last year we submitted an application to the New Zealand Major Events Creative and Cultural Incubator, and we received notification a couple of weeks ago that we were successful in our application, and we're receiving the maximum level of funding over 3 years for to set up a Matariki Mackenzie event, which is a huge task. And we're really excited about it. It's going to be small steps to do it the right way. Obviously, mana whenua are key to this, and we need to respectfully work with them to establish a really strong, robust framework and governance structure for this festival that will continue forward. And we have to, I guess, ensure that we are telling the authentic Matariki stories, and we develop a festival that delivers activities and events in line with the true values of Matariki, and doesn't become, as I've had mana whenua tell me many times, it doesn't become just a 3-day drinking festival. So we really have to own that space, and this is what in our application. And our application is was very much based on coming from a place of authenticity and coming from a place of knowledge. So building that capability within our region and within mana whenua, so that we are all sharing the correct narrative around Matariki. So that's really exciting, and I guess there will be an event, a community style focused event this year, but that will be growing over the next few years. So we're working with New Zealand Major Events on a development plan for that festival. So there's a lot of work going behind the scenes on that one. And in terms of business support update, Ian and the team here are working hard to ensure that the advisory and implementation grants are distributed. They were down in the region doing the door knocking last week. We have found a few operators aren't interested, and that's fine. And we have, an interesting one, but we're certainly doing everything that we can to make operators aware of the opportunities in that space. And we are advocating to MB to unlock the Kickstart funding that was also part of that Tourism Communities Initiative. So hopefully we'll see some news soon about that one, because that will certainly help our operators gear up for the great return of international tourism. Feels great just saying that. So yeah, I guess that's probably my key messages. There's lots going on. We are busy people, but we are happy people because there is a light.
Thank you, Lydia. That's a very, very good report, and very positive in a number of ways. I think the biggest one is the borders opening up, and the fact that we can tag into Australia, and hopefully they're wanting to travel. I did note, though, that our businesses were slow in coming forward for assistance. I'm not sure why that is. You seem to think that they may be in a better financial position than some of the other tourist businesses in other districts. But I'm not. What I hear from our businesses, they're all really struggling. So
I think it's what the grants can be used for. So the implementation grant, I think, is incredibly helpful, but it's not going to help the operating cash flow.
No.
So, and that's the challenge. That's where the resurgent support payments come through. So, and obviously the wage subsidies, they're the really helpful initiatives. So, yeah.
So, okay, and it was great that our 52 reasons, you got some accolade within the industry around that, because it was very, very successful and received a lot of hits. You'd almost think you could roll it out again for the next 52 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are. So I probably didn't talk to that. So a lot of the creative that we're running now, we're just reusing those assets in a different way. So you can go onto Facebook and see 5 of the 52 in like a carousel form, and they continually, so we're repurposing that. And certainly at the moment, towards the end of this month, will be in the likes of Auckland and Tauranga, because they need a bit more notice period to think about what they want to do over the winter. We'll be telling them about ski touring, Ski the Tasman, bucket list ski fields, and we'll be using some of those 52 reasons videos to do that. So we certainly are, we're just doing it in a bit of a different way.
No, it was great, and it was a great advertising campaign for Mackenzie. Anne, you've got a question.
Hi, Lydia. It's great that you've got some funding for the Matariki Festival. Congratulations. I'm hoping that you'll touch base with the Aoraki Mackenzie International Dark Sky Reserve Board.
Absolutely. I see them as actually having a role in our governance group, Anne, is my, and we have been working with Tori and Michelle as well. They know I'm just waiting for the public announcement this week around from the government, and then we get to tell people. So,
looking forward to it.
I am too, but it will be small steps to do it the right way.
Yeah, thank you.
So we've just, Lydia, we've got media here. So Keela, can you just sort of hold the story around Matariki until it's probably announced from the government? I think that's the wish, isn't it, Lydia?
Yes, please, if possible. It should be in the next couple of days.
I'll chase you, Lydia, but I'm happy to sit on that till you guys are ready.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, Lydia didn't realise that you were here, Keela. Probably.
Oh, sorry, Lydia.
But no,
I'll give you a call afterwards.
Yeah, it's fine, but we just need the minister to announce it rather than us. Otherwise, we won't get any more.
No, agreed.
No, I wouldn't want to be responsible for that. We'll sort it.
Okay, thanks. Thanks,
All right.
Keela. Angela.
I just wanted to ask Lydia, there's a $70,000 fund for food, fibre and agri-tech innovations. And one of the things that I think is a strong opportunity in the Mackenzie is the Made in Mackenzie food brand and showcasing that. I've had a chat with some of our guys on the Te Monahuna Kiuta project, and they've done similar work in Australia, and I just wanted to find out if there was any more specific criteria about that fund and whether that's something that would sort of meet the criteria.
Is that a Christchurch NZ fund there, Angela?
Yes, it's a Christchurch NZ fund.
I imagine that'll sit within our economic development pillar, and it probably is for Christchurch. I'll have to look into it a bit further and I'll come back to you, but I imagine it will be for Christchurch rather than more central South Island. But I could be wrong. So it's the Food and Fibre
Agri-Tech Fund. I'll send you some of the proposal that that one of our consultants has done. They've done similar work in other areas, and I just before I did any more work on that, I just wanted to find out whether that was eligible or not. So I just thought it's worth following that up with you.
Yep. Absolutely. And just on that food story and telling that story, I know a lot of the regions around here are currently in that space as well. Waimak, Selwyn are doing quite a bit in that space. So it might become a greater Canterbury story. So
okay. I definitely think there's opportunity in that to showcase some of our product and some of our food. And if that was to be a wider, Canterbury initiative, that would certainly make sense.
Awesome, great.
Any other questions for Lydia? Well, thank you so much, Lydia. It was really, really good to see you again and in person, virtual maybe. And thank you for your report. Very good.
Thank you, guys, and I'm just so pleased that we have a light.
If I could just say thank you to Lydia for keeping us so well informed on everything, and I think it's a really, really thorough report. Really appreciate all the work that you do for us, and keeping us alive out there.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. It's a wonderful region, and I feel so connected to it. So, yeah.
Well, that's good. So we'll keep in touch, Lydia.
Sounds great. Thanks, team.
Let us know if you need anything. Thank you. Bye. Okay. Thank you for that. 6.4, council monthly report. So this is our financial reports put together by Sandy. Will someone move that we receive the report? Thanks. Stuart and Matt, thank you. Sandy, you've done quite a bit of writing.
Through the Mayor, through the Mayor, good morning. I will take that the report has been read, but I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
So, yeah, we've got a few questions, and Angela has sent us a bit of a breakdown from her management team, because we've got a lot of subsidies and grants that haven't come in, especially in roading. The timber sales, I was talking to Terry O'Neill, read this, and he's apparently just put the rest of the money through, so you're receiving $500,000 odd as far as that, and that will balance the forestry account up a bit. That money, although those trees haven't been harvested, the money's being paid out, which is good. Oh, you were aware of that, were you, Sandy, that money was coming through?
Through the Mayor, yes, I was. I was expecting it in the final quarter of this financial year, so I imagine you will see it in March, April.
Yes.
In those reports.
Graham, if you want me to, I'm happy to just give a bit of an update. You know, I did send out an email last night, which was an update from operations, just predicting that by year end there'll be an 80% spend, you know, on the capital spend, and some of the areas that there would be underexpenditure would be around the Fairley building. Work has just commenced on that, and that'll carry forward into the new year. Twizel, we may have some work carried on there, and we do have a few supply chain and logistics issues around the 3 water projects. I did send out a rather detailed email with some of the details around specific projects, which I won't go through, but if there's any questions, we're happy to take that and we can ask that. We've got David online, and you know, he's happy to also answer any questions on the capital projects. I'm also pleased to note that, Sandy, we've got the January financials report out. We'll be discussing that at exec on Wednesday, and we're working towards actually getting these reports out on a more regular basis so that we can have an internal discussion. One of the areas I'd like to see going forward is that we have a bit of a projection. So I'd like to see that we get a projection of any, you know, variances, so that we know what we're going to be seeing towards the end of the year. And then the other thing is just on the capital projects, getting a bit more description around, you know, the status of the projects, and also once again a bit of an idea of which projects we're going to be carrying forward. So that remains a bit of a work in progress on the finance report. But I'd like to thank Sandy. She's doing a thorough job, and it's a really thorough report that gives us some really good facts to enable us to look at this, consider it, and make some proactive change going forwards.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Angela. My question is probably more to David than anyone. Are you still there, David?
Sure.
The Crown infrastructure funding, $5 million, are we going to be or spend out by the end of March, or is it now extended to June?
It's now extended to June, and yes, we'll pick up the whole 5.11 million. We have got half of that already, and we have just fully claimed for the next 1.6 million, which has been approved, and then we'll put in another claim with our quarterly report at the end of March, which is this month, which would pick up the rest of it. We've been working quite well with the managers. I've got the I'm not sure, our client manager coming down tomorrow, so I'm taking him out to show him the progress that we've made around water main renewals, around the big rising main that's going into Twizel, the dewatering, all those projects, so he can see the progress on the ground. So yes, we'll pick up our full amount and it will all be expended by the due date.
Okay, thank you, David. Any questions around finance, Stuart?
Yeah, once again, it's for David. Have we got the land for the Fairly water treatment plant sorted?
Yes, we have. All issues, it's just going through the legal people just to be finalised. So everything's agreed to. We've had a bit of sort of discussion around access ways and things like that. But yes, the whole site's all sorted, all surveyed, all done. Really, someone's just got to sign the bottom line. We've got agreement on price, etc.
And Stuart, just to answer your question, we scheduled a workshop with councillors. I'm not sure if it's next week or the week after, but we've got a workshop scheduled with councillors on the Tuesday to go through that.
That'll be good, because it's a worry keeps coming up about the membranes are going to be late, etc. Have they been ordered now that we've got the land sorted, or are we still in the process of doing that?
So that people can tender them. There are a number of options out there, but yes, depending on which option you go, there may be a 6 to 12 month delay in getting them. So I am working with Becca's to expedite that design performance specification at this point in time, and we'll be able to update you on that when we come to council, Angela, in the next week or fortnight. I can't remember exactly either.
Good.
Okay, well, that's good news. Thanks, David. So we haven't got into any borrowed money, but that's probably because we haven't had a big enough spend to date. But that's all really set to go. If we need to, we can start. Sandy, is that right?
Through the media, yes, it is. You will notice that our investments have dropped probably a little bit more than we'd like, but it was just a way we're funding effectively our rather than going out early for this borrowing, we'll go out when we actually need it.
We do need to lock in before the interest rates start hiking, although we do have, LGFA does have really low rates. We do need to lock in some low rates as well. So I know Sandy's got that on her radar screen, and David's also going to work with Sandy to provide a bit of a projection around cash flows, so that we can just update what you did in November, Sandy, so that we can get a sense of when it's likely to come through and when we need to start drawing down from LGFA.
Okay, and the other question I had was around consultants. I know it's up, but then so is our staff numbers down. So we've had to do more of this money with consultancy. But is it beyond where it possibly should be?
Graham, it is on the high side. I think part of that reason is because of the problems we had around the LTP. There was a significant amount of money that went into remediating that and made sure that we actually met our deadline by December. We also had the review, which did also cost some money, but we are actively working to make sure that we are less reliant on consultants and that we are employing in-house, and we're looking at all areas, not just in the finance area, but right across the business to see how we can do that. And certainly that's been reflected in our next annual plan.
Thanks, Angela. Any other questions on finance? Well, thank you, Sandy. It looks as though council's pretty happy with this report.
Through the Mayor, it is still a work in progress, so we are going to keep improving, and I've taken on board the suggestions from last week as well. So you'll progressively see some of that inputted in the next few months.
I'd just like to commend Sandy. I know when I emailed Sandy on holidays and over the weekend, Sandy's still busy working away on annual plan and all sorts of things. She's doing incredibly long hours, and I'd like to recognise that and actually thank her for that, because she's doing an amazing job.
Yes, it's and for us as councillors too, it's really comforting to have a report as such as this so that we can actually see exactly where we are and times now with a lot of capital expenditure. It's so important to monitor the finance as well as the project's progress. So that's good. Thanks, Sandy.
Yeah,
Stuart, did you
I'd
want?
just like to endorse that and thank you, because it's a lot easier to see where we are and what's going on and etc., rather than trying to second guess it. No, well done.
Okay. We've got some thumbs up, Sandy, so thank you. Moving on, 6.5, our quarterly portfolio report from Bancorp Treasury Services. Can we receive this report, please? Murray, Emily, thanks. Again, Sandy or Paul? I'm not sure who's going to speak to this.
Through the mayor, I'll probably speak very briefly.
There's nothing very
Paul will add
exciting in it, and I'm wondering why we're even employing the services of Bancorp at the moment.
Through the mayor, that they will become handy soon when we do go to the LGFA for funding. And yes, you're correct. That is pretty static to, we don't have a lot in it. But in saying that, we are meeting both our policies. We're adhering to those policies, our parameters against our investment policy. Our bonds that we have, all of 2, are ticking along. And as you can see from our investments and our term deposit investments, they are just starting. We've just taken out 2 term deposits in January, and the interest rates are starting to creep back up, which is nice to see. But yes, you're right. There's not a lot in it.
Yep. I sort of think we need to do a little bit of work with Miles around optimization see what we can do around optimization of the portfolio. And you're right, Sandy, when we get to actually doing some work around the drawdowns and, you know, the hedging of our portfolio and locking in of rates, I think we'll definitely see the value add from Bancorp.
Okay. Is there any questions from councillors?
I see Paul.
Yeah, through the mayor. Just to let you know, in regards to Bancorp, we've currently instructed them to proceed with turning us into a guaranteeing member. We're a non-guarantee member at the moment, so we can increase our loaning capacity. So that's underway. So I'll keep the councillors informed on progress there. So that's to pick up on the point that the chief executive made around and the manager finance around our ongoing debt commitments going forward.
Paul, just to be very clear on that, if we do that, we'll need to make sure that there's a consultation process, because it does affect our Treasury policy. So I don't know what consultation we've done around that in the past.
I don't think you've done any consultation in the past. We've never had to change from a non-guarantee to a guaranteeing.
Yeah, we may just need to just consider that and just find out if there's any engagement required, and we need to bring a report to council. Just if we could just make a note of that and just follow up on that.
Just further to that, I didn't think that we had to be a member to borrow.
You don't, but after it reaches a certain figure, I think it's 20 million. You're better placed to be a guaranteeing member. So that costs around $5,000 in legal fees to get that process done. It gives us a better rate as well, and it increases the borrowing capacity. So, but I just obviously need to follow up and see whether consultation is required.
So why were we thinking we didn't have to be a member when we first sort of went down the road of LG and LFA borrowing?
Why? I guess it's just I guess it was just the we haven't borrowed before, and basically we felt that the figure of $20 million, the cap was sufficient, and we didn't think it was worth at that point in time becoming a
moving from a non-guaranteeing member to a guaranteeing member and getting the slightly better rates. But as you increase in your debt, it's obviously more sound to actually become a full guaranteeing member.
Okay, so we will have to look into that and what that requires. Is there more risk being a fully guaranteed member?
No, not at all. No.
The risk is minimal, Graham, but it does offer us a preferential rate. But I do think if there's any, we do need to go back out and make it a consultation, because I think you just got to dot the I's and cross the T's in terms of the Local Government Act. So we'll need to just check that and just find out what's required before we become a guaranteeing member.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No. Well, I'm going to give you a 5-minute break, and then we're going to go on to the memorial wall for the Fairley Cemetery. We've got some people joining us, Arlene.
Yes, that's correct, Graham.
11:15. Are they not there yet?
Yes, they're in the waiting room. So while you're on a break, I'll let them in.
Okay, thanks. 5 minutes. Thanks. Okay. So I'll reconvene the meeting. We're now on page 101, 6.1, memorial wall for the Fairley Cemetery. Will someone move we receive this document, please? Murray and Anne, thanks. And I want to welcome Anne and Francie and Gary and Kevin, who are somewhere in Fairley. And they're on board, so they're going to speak to it. So David's authorised it. So David, do you want to make any comments?
Look, Mr. Chairman, I'll just make a couple of comments really that this plan has been through to the community board, and so that they've had a look at it in principle, but the plan that's been presented to you at council is different to the plan that was presented to the community board. So I am going to propose in the recommendations that you, in number 2, that council approves, and we just add the 2 words in principle, the plan and location. The issue that we've got is we've just cleared that site, and it's in the middle of the RSA Memorial Circle. And so we'd need to talk to the RSA if we were going to build the wall there. We've raised that with the community board. I think, help me, Arlene, is a community board tomorrow or maybe Thursday. We've got the community board coming up, so we can clarify that because it's a slightly different position. So if you approve in principle, it gives the ability for us to talk with the community board and the other people, obviously, that have got an interest in the cemetery.
Okay, thanks, David. So I might just hand over to you, Francie, if you want to take us through. Councillors have got the request in front of them. But quite happy for you or any one of you to speak to it if you'd like to, please.
Well, I think the proposal that you have on your agenda is a summary of where we've been so far.
Francie, could you just come a bit closer to the computer, please? We can't quite hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
So you have proposed this is
no, I'm sorry, your mic's cutting out.
Is it? Why is it
okay.
No, you're right now, Francie.
We right now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, here we are. The speaker up, so it's very loud now. So,
no, we're actually losing you. I'm sorry, Francie.
Oh.
So where's the microphone there?
On the computer.
It was working this morning. Could it be because you have your TV on? You said you.
TV's not on now.
It's not on now. Okay.
No. Damn. Okay.
It could be internet speed. Perhaps try turning the video off, and we'll just have Mike.
Good suggestion. Yeah.
Did you hear that, Francie? Maybe turn the internet off and just have the microphone on, turn the picture off.
Where's that picture? I don't know where that is.
No, I'm no computer.
Oh, Kevin will know how to work it.
I'll see if I can do it.
Just at the bottom of the screen, you may have a little icon that says stop video, which you just have to tap next to the microphone button, the mute button.
The meeting chair should be able to do that. And,
here we go. I can do it. I've done it.
yeah, and it probably won't make any difference.
Okay, I've stopped your video for you.
Right. Okay.
No, it's not coming through.
I think the most important thing would be try and sit directly in front of the computer, not off to an angle, and try and be looking at the computer when you speak. If you look away, directs the voice away from the microphone. It is challenging.
Look, if we're going to have much more trouble with this, I think we'll all shoot down to the council office.
That's perfect. As you were then.
Perfect.
Perfect now.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, well. Here we go then. Well, as I said earlier, you have on your agenda our proposal. And I guess we're open for questions now on any queries that you may have regarding this project.
Okay. So has anyone got any questions? I actually commend you. I think it's a very, very good project. I suppose my first question would be, why does it have to be so high?
Well, everything is subject to change. We haven't actually considered the heights and size. We have just been given to date this plan.
Okay. So, Anne?
It's preliminary design, so the height is subject.
So, Anne, you can hear me? Yes.
Yeah,
thanks.
I can hear you, but I think I'm cutting across something that the group is saying. Am I?
No, you're right. You go. Thanks.
So my question also was around the height. Why so high? But I picked up that's not absolutely set in stone at this point. Also, too, the Macro Carpa I thought was quite an exciting addition, and I wondered whether the timber Macro Carpa was going to come from specific trees that may be related to the surrounds that come from the cemetery, maybe, or from the fairly area somewhere. I wondered whether there was going to be something special about the Macro Carpa panelling.
That's conceptual at this stage.
Whoever is speaking, could you come right in front of the microphone, please?
It's only conceptual plan at this stage, and we're open to a lot of suggestions like this. The whole idea at the moment was to get council support and backing. The design is still, we understand for consent, you normally need a fixed design. So there's probably a bit of engineering required for tilt slab. I'm a retired builder, but I'm not familiar with tilt slab construction. So to get consent, council would be more familiar about this than what I am, but I would think there would be some design work, basic design work that would be necessary for this project to proceed with consent. We're just looking for council's support and financial backing. The design of the project is still to be, the final design still to be finalised.
Okay, thank you. Anne's question, I don't know whether you heard it or not, was around the fact, are you going to use the macrocarpa tree, local trees for some of the woodwork?
Yes, my reply was we're open to that. Highly likely that it would be, given that macrocarpa is available in this area, and we have local sawmillers, if that's acceptable in the consent process.
It's good. Any other questions? Murray?
Yeah, just a question on that. I just wanted to make sure that the group are happy with the relocation of it. You know, I know it'll come to community board on Thursday, but obviously it's been relocated. Are they happy with the relocation, and does that relocation allow, you know, if there was an extension, if there was an extension of the wall or something else needed to be built onto it, would that allow it?
As in relocation, I don't think a location was ever decided upon. So this is the first recommendation from us. There are alternative sites, but this is our preferred site.
So I suppose the question, Gary, was, is there room for it to be extended if it had to be at that site?
Yes, we believe so. We believe that the current scope of it is going to be suitable for many years to come, and that would be a long way down the track. 70 plaques are available on this.
Yes, thank you. Stuart?
Yeah, I've been down and had a look at the sites. No, it looks very good. Like you say, it would have to be probably checked out with the RSA, but I'd be in support of it. The other thing on the funding thing, you've got prices there for plaques. Now, if it's a community project, where does that money go? Because I could see if the council gave a loan and the plaques, as they get paid off or put on the wall, could pay back the loan. Is that what you envisage or not?
At this stage, we haven't thought on that matter, but yes, I believe that's what would happen. The funds would go back into the community. Is that what you're asking?
Was that answer your question?
Back to the council.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So I presume council's going to have to pick up the maintenance. There will be LG and moss and all those sorts of things will grow on this wall from time to time.
That's what I mean. It could turn out to be self-funding.
Yes, there will be some. I imagine the cost of the plaques, there would be some extra in that to compensate for that sort of process.
So Murray, you had a question?
Yeah, it's probably a question for Sandy, actually, if she's still there, but it did appear that the capital money for the cemeteries wasn't spent last year. Doesn't look like it's going to be spent this year, whether it'll be spent next year. So I would have thought there might be quite a consideration in there for the council to actually spend some of the capital project money on cemeteries.
I'll let Sandy answer that one. Geez, Sandy's on board. Thanks, Sandy.
Sorry, apologies for that. I was off doing something else.
The question is, under funded cemetery money, we've got a sort of a surplus in that account. Could some of this be used?
Through the mayor, yes, it could. The cemeteries funding comes out of what we call our district general reserve. So there is money there that if it hasn't been spent, it's been budgeted for, certainly. So there will be money there. And there is, I believe, there potentially could be some depreciation funding there as well.
Yeah, I think there is. And the point being, I think that we've never spent we probably haven't spent the capital money in there for quite some time. So maybe this, maybe this is a good area to look at, and something that they give back to the community.
Just on that, Your Worship, could I suggest that you actually get advice from Brian regarding what is needed around our cemeteries before we commit that money? I'm sorry, I'm not up with play about the state of our cemeteries, what we need in the way of tree maintenance, etc., etc. My understanding is that we don't get enough from burials to pay for it. So maybe before you commit that money, could I ask that we get some advice from Brian? He's not on the call at the moment.
Just an answer to that, yeah, the cemetery maintenance money, there's obviously not enough in the pot to maintain the cemeteries, but in terms of the capital, we've never spent the capital. So I'm presuming that, as Sandy said, there's probably some in reserve. I would have thought that because we've just gone into an annual plan, we would have already have done that assessment on the cemeteries for next year.
All I'm asking is to get advice from the person who manages that. I don't have the detail, Your Worship.
No, and I think that's fair comment, David. We need to talk with Brian over that. But righto, we've devolved into how we're going to fund it. First of all, we've got to decide that we really support the project, and I think from what I've heard from my councillors, we do support it. And then how can we support it? So, Anne, did you have another comment?
Oh, I just wondered, Mayor Graham, for the purposes of today, I wondered whether just approving or putting to the motion point 2 was going to be sufficient.
Which was we approved the suggested site.
Yeah, in principle, the plan and the location.
And in principle, the plan.
And location.
And location.
I think what we said, we'd want to take it back though. So we'd approve it in principle, but we'd want to take it back to the community board just to make sure that they're in agreement as well. And then we can do some further work on what the funding of that. So I agree with you. I think we can receive the request and we can approve the plan in principle, and we can come back on 3 and 4.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to move in that direction.
Okay. Who was seconder?
Yeah, I'd second that.
Okay, any further discussion? No, so I'll take all those in favour, say aye. Aye, hands up. Against? None against. So, so maybe I can flick back on to our team of presenters, Francie and Kevin. Can we come back in? Arlene?
Yes, they're still here, Mayor Graham.
Yes. So they're still on board, but we haven't got a photo, no.
No, but they can hear you.
Okay, so just put it back to you, Francie. Are you happy enough with that at the moment? We need to square this off with the community board. You've got 100% acceptance from council. We'll work towards the other things around contributions. I think you've got the okay to virtually go ahead. We need to draw up the concept plans formally and decide on a few things and get the position, and then we should be all set to go. Is there anything you need from us?
No, that just gives us the opportunity to move on and get concrete design and go to the next step of the project.
Okay. So thank you, Gary. Thank you, Francie, Kevin, and Anne.
Thank you.
And look forward to this project being completed. Thank you. Okay, the next one is 6.7, new commercial residual waste fee. So can we receive this report, please? Emily and Stuart, thank you. So Angie, you've done a lot of work around this, and I want to thank you and your team for what you've done. I just had to write to Chris yesterday a couple of words of how pleased we are that we're finally getting these green bins rolled out.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take the report as read, and yeah, green bins, we are on track at the moment. The bins have arrived at the yard to get distributed out to all the different properties. So we're on track for that, and looking to start the service on Monday the 21st. So I guess this report with the commercial residual fee comes as part of that, because we're bringing in the organic service. We're using Red Roof, a bit of a change in how financial systems work, and we just need this rate really to make sure we can recover that commercial waste cost that's going through the Red Roof. This is the same as the recycling rate we introduced recently.
Thanks, Angela. I mean, Angie, is there any questions?
So the fee, Angie, covers the cost of getting stuff down to Timaru?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it's been calculated on the cost of disposal, transport, the waste levy fee, which has now been increased, and also a component of the management fee that we pay to the contractor for the Twizel Recovery Park, which is where that commercial waste comes in and out of.
So I see by the terms, and you alluded to it last time in the workshop, and that we'll be directly responsible for the payment, not the contractor. So in other words, TDC are going to bill us, not the contractor.
That's correct. Once we send our waste to Red Roof, our district council like invoice.
We're losing you a wee bit, Angie.
Is that better?
It might be a wee bit better. Talk right up close.
Yeah, that's right. So Timaru will invoice us, Mackenzie, directly, and then we will need to on-charge that to the contractor. So that's what the fee allows us to do.
Okay, thank you. Anne, you've got a question?
With GST added to it, it still is an unusual figure you've landed on, Angie, $301.58. Why isn't it rounded off?
We kept this one as is without rounding it. When we come to the end of the financial year, we'll review all these rates again. And I think that's a really good time to get a bit more of a gauge of those waste volumes coming in, and we can recalculate from there. But yeah, we didn't round this one to start with.
So Angela?
I did ask a question when I sent the report back. There were two questions I had. One was, and I see it hasn't been added into the report, which was just when this would become effective from, and then just also the question around communication. So we do need to make sure that we communicate this out effectively to all the to the affected people. So I just thought those were the two things that I had asked to be clarified in the recommendations, but I don't think it was seen when I sent it back because the report was already authorised.
Yeah, no, I didn't see that, unfortunately. It will take effect, I guess, technically from the day we start the organics collection, so Monday the 21st of March, because that's when we'll need to start operating that new system. And yes, with the recycling fee that we introduced, we put that on the website. It really only affects one contractor at the moment, but there's potential for it to be applied to other commercial waste operators in the future.
Yep, just probably good that we communicate that back to that operator.
Yes, we will do. And it will also be included as a variation in their contract, just to make it particularly clear.
Great,
are we still using the same contractor, Angie?
Yes, we've still got EnviroWaste, so they had our last contract and they've got our new contract as well.
Any other questions? Matt?
Just a quick one on for Angie. Sorry, just if you can remind me, I can't remember the model that we're using for the organics, the green bin rollout. Is everybody getting a green bin regardless? Is there an opt-in, opt-out scenario? I can't recall. Can you just remind me?
Yeah, with our wheelie bin service at the moment, if you're within a collection area, then it is provided to your property. So the green bin will be provided to every property that has bins at the moment. It's only a voluntary opt-in or opt-out if you're not in that collection township area. Perhaps some properties on the main highway, they can voluntarily opt in if we can find a place for them to put their wheelie bins that's safe for the truck to pick up. And then that charge gets added into their property rates because it wouldn't ordinarily be there if they're not within that collection area.
Cool. Great, thanks. And so our rates are currently modeled to reflect the new charges. So there's no changes in the domestic in the rate currently.
No, we've accounted for the new service, the organic service starting, so that's included in the current solid waste fee.
Great, cool, thank you.
So, Angie, is there any communication needed around what can go in the green bin and what shouldn't go in the green bin?
Yeah, usually what shouldn't. Yeah, so we have got, there is a leaflet that goes out on every green bin. So it's printed on paper and it's put inside a compostable bag, which can go in the green bin if people don't wish to keep it. That has information on when the service starts, what you can put in it. It actually has a full list on the back of all different types of waste and what colour bin to put them in. So Chris, we've worked with EnviroWaste and we've got that together, and then we'll have some other comms going out as well. We're hoping it is going to be quite self-explanatory though.
Okay, thank you. I'm just about worried sometimes that these green bins will be half full of trees as guys cut down a branch and thrown it in the green bin and the lid won't shut.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the lid will need to be closed. It does take a lot of different types of food and garden waste. There are a few exceptions like cabbage tree leaves and rhubarb leaves, but you can put a lot in there. So we're expecting for it to be well received. Yeah, just fingers crossed COVID doesn't throw out any more hiccups along the way.
Oh, it will be well received, and I'm really pleased it's getting rolled out because that's one of the things over the last year or even 18 months, or right back to when we, 3 years ago through the LTP, when we kind of consulted on it, and it came out quite strongly that they need a green bin. And I've regularly been asked, when's the green bin coming? So finally, thank you, it's on the way.
Mayor Graham, I could share my screen and show you the publicity going out if you want to see a quick copy of it. I think Arlene would have to give me permission to do that though.
Yes.
I think
that
you
would be
already
good.
have
Thanks,
permission,
David.
David. Give it a try.
That's
I think.
So this leaflet that goes out on the bins also uses the joint branding that we've developed with the South Canterbury councils, with Timaru and Waimate. So it's creating a really consistent theme throughout South Canterbury that we all have essentially the same service, some slight differences, but really helpful for those holiday home owners that come through from Timaru to make it really easy to follow. So that second page there is a list of all different types of waste and a bit of a colour-coded list as to what to do with them.
Well, that's very good, Angie, very good.
And Angie, I see there that actually it jumped to my attention straight away that it's every week. So it's similar to the blue glass bins. They're not, you don't have to remember which alternate day week it is for the green bin. Yeah, that's right. So red and yellow stay alternate weeks, and the green bin and the blue glass crates can go out every week. So really good service. It's 240 litre bins, the same size as the yellow bin. So you can fit a lot of garden waste in there. So hopefully, Graham, you can chop those trees up and squeeze them in.
Oh, that's very good. Well done, team. I think it's excellent that you have that communication goes out well with it.
Yes, I guess just one thing to add to that on the comms. There is the change to the collection day in Fairlie, Kimble and Albury from Thursday to Friday. That's because the truck for that collection is going to come through from Timaru and will go directly back to Timaru to Red Roost facility. So that to get the availability in the trucks, we had to change that to a Friday collection. So that will go out with the comms and with the green bins. But we're hoping, just shifting it from one day to the next, hopefully isn't going to cause too many hiccups.
Mr. Chair, I've put a couple of comments in the chat there, but all the relevant information is on the website. We've got the change for Fairlie, Albury and Kimble is being communicated via the messenger as well as in the courier this week. And I guess the good thing is that the normal collection day is Thursday. So people who haven't got the message will presumably ring council to see why their bin hasn't been collected, and customer services are on standby to just tell them to leave it out and explain the change over the phone. So I think if we were bringing the day earlier in the week, it would cause problems. The fact it's a day later means it'll be relatively easy to manage. And we will have teething problems with people putting the wrong things in, but we'll just kind of up the conversation on that when we see what the problems are.
I think the sheet with the colour coding on there is a really good idea. Because even between the yellow bin and the red bin, people get themselves confused. And now put a green bin in, it's like asking my wife on the drafting gate to draft 3 ways. She just can't get it. So, okay, well, just thank you. So we need to adopt the resolution that the new commercial residue waste fee of $262.22 exclusive of GST is added to the fees and charges for the solid waste effective from
the 21st of March.
21st of March. Is that all we need in the resolution? If so, have I a mover?
Yeah, I'd move that.
I move Stuart, seconded Ann, that the new commercial residual waste fee of 262.24 exclusive GST is added to the fees and charges for solid waste effective from the 21st of March. Anyone against? No, so everyone's in favour. Thank you, Angie, for all the work you've done around this. And you'll be pleased to fill your bin up with green waste.
Well.
Okay, thank you for that. We've now got unconfirmed minutes. Is that all in the business side, is it, Arlene?
Yes, Mayor Graham, I don't think there are any more reports.
There was only the community board recommendations on page 110 before the unconfirmed minutes.
Yes, I was just going to go to that. Thank you. So we've got on Twizel Community Board that a grant of 500 be approved in response to the application for the Twizel wood gatherers. An application from the Twizel wood gatherers towards the cost of equipment hire, and that the draft O'Hare Road Reserve Development Plan be approved for release for the community feedback. So that was the Twizel community minutes. The Tekapo community minutes. We have some recommendations that the urban effects hoop bike stands designed with the ATO logo insert be approved. That the bike stand purchase and installation be funded from the township projects budget with an estimated cost of $20,000 and it to be a stainless steel finish. The offer of a donation for sculpture Space Saver be gratefully accepted to be located on the lakefront reserve. The final location to be confirmed by the board chair and community Services Manager. It was Tekapo, and finally Fairley. Fairley Community Board minutes. The Fairley Community Board elects Damon Smith to fill the vacancy of the chairperson created by the passing of Les. The Fairley Community Board elects Angela Harbracken as deputy chairperson. That a grant of 558 be declined in response to the application from the Fairley Bowling Club towards the cost of building consent fees. That the grant of $250 be approved in response to the application from the Mackenzie Amateur Swim Club towards the cost of repairing the club's dive boards. And that the removal of the mature Douglas fir tree in the southern boundary of McLean Park be approved. Those were the recommendations from the Fairley Community Board.
Mayor Graham, can I just jump in there? There's a typo there. I'm
Yes.
sure Arlene's picked it up already. Just at number 2 there, it references the Tekapo Community Board. I assume it should be the Fairley Community Board.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'll correct that.
No problem.
Thanks for that. So those were the recommendations from the Community Board to Council. Someone move we approve that. Emily and Matt, thank you. And we also need to confirm council minutes, the minutes on the 8th of February, minutes of engineering and services on the 15th of February, minutes of commercial and economic development committee on the 15th of February, minutes of planning and regulation meetings on the 15th of February, and the minutes of audit and risk on the 14th of February. Is there anyone want to agree? Well, we all agree we confirm those minutes. I'm happy to move, seconder, and thank you. So we have some public excluded minutes. We don't necessarily have to go into public excluded unless there was something was needed to be talked about in those minutes. So I'll be guided by you. Otherwise, we can just receive the public excluded minutes as well in public forum. Happy to do that? Okay. So also the minutes from the public excluded on 8th of February, public excluded on the 15th of February on the commercial and economic development, minutes excluded on the planning and regulation on the 15th of February, and the public excluded audit and risk meeting on the 14th of December. So we'll adopt those two. Someone moved, seconded that, and Murray, thank you. Now that virtually concludes the meeting, but Angela and I think David has got a